Do you know that not everyone who is dead is truly gone? Or have you heard the chilling tales of the undead? Grab a seat and listen closely. Let me tell you the story of Nnamdi. In the village of Omonahoma, nestled between lush green hills and a bustling modern town in southern Nigeria, a mystery unfolds. And at the heart of it was a woman named Adaura. She was a widow, her husband having passed away many years ago, leaving her to raise their only son, Nnamdi, on her own. Nnamdi was the light of her life, a kind and ambitious young man who had dreams of becoming a successful engineer. He was her pride and joy, and she often joked that he was her little husband, the man of the house who would one day give her grandchildren to dote on. Nnamdi was a man of his word, and he made a promise to his mother before leaving for the city to pursue his dreams. "Mama," he said, holding her hands gently, "I promise you that I will return one day with a beautiful wife and grandchildren for you. You will never be alone again." Adaura smiled, her heart swelling with love and hope. She believed in her son, and she knew he would keep his promise. The day Nnamdi left for the city was bittersweet. Adaura stood at the edge of the village, watching as her son boarded the bus that would take him to the bustling metropolis. She waved until the bus disappeared into the horizon, her heart heavy with both pride and sorrow. Nnamdi had always been her rock, and now he was venturing out into the world to chase his dreams. As the days turned into weeks, Adaura kept herself busy with her small farm and the occasional visit from neighbors. She often thought of Nnamdi, imagining him in the city, working hard to achieve his goals. She prayed for his success and safety, holding on to the promise he had made to her. Little did she know that fate had other plans in store for her beloved son. One rainy evening, as Nnamdi was driving back to the city after visiting his mother, his car skidded off the wet road and crashed into a tree. The impact was fatal, and Nnamdi died instantly. The news of his death shattered Adaura's world. She was inconsolable, her heart broken into 1,000 pieces. She buried her son in the family compound, next to his father, and mourned him deeply. The promise he had made to her seemed lost forever, buried with him in the cold, hard ground. Adaura's days were filled with grief, and she often found herself visiting Nnamdi's grave, talking to him as if he were still alive. She missed him terribly, and the thought of never seeing him again was almost too much to bear. But unbeknownst to her, Nnamdi's spirit was not ready to let go. Unbeknownst to anyone, Nnamdi's spirit lingered, unable to move on. He was determined to fulfill the promise he had made to his mother, even in death. His spirit drifted to a nearby city, where he took on a physical form, appearing as the living man he once was. There, he met a beautiful woman named Chidimma. She was kind, intelligent, and full of life, and Nnamdi fell in love with her almost instantly. They courted, and after a while, Nnamdi proposed. Chidimma, who had also fallen deeply in love with him, accepted without hesitation. They married in a small, intimate ceremony, and soon after, Chidimma gave birth to 2 beautiful children, 2 boys and a girl. Nnamdi was a devoted husband and father, and their family was happy. But as the years went by, Chidimma began to notice something strange. Chidimma couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Nnamdi never spoke of his family or his past. Whenever she asked about his parents or his childhood, he would change the subject or give vague answers. She also noticed that he never took her or the children to visit his family, even during holidays. This growing suspicion gnawed at her, and she decided to confront him. One day, as Christmas approached, Chidimma decided to bring up the topic again. "Nnamdi," she said, her voice tinged with concern, "our children are growing up, and they don't even know who their grandparents are. Don't you think it's time we visited your family? I would love to meet your parents, and I'm sure they would love to see their grandchildren." Nnamdi hesitated, his heart heavy with the weight of his secret. But he knew Chidimma was right. It was time to fulfill the promise he had made to his mother, even if it meant revealing the truth about himself. He agreed to take his family to the village to meet his parents. The decision was not an easy one, but Nnamdi knew it was necessary. He had kept his secret for too long, and it was time to face the consequences. As they prepared for the journey, Nnamdi felt a sense of unease. He knew that the villagers would recognize him, and he wasn't sure how to explain his presence after so many years. But he also knew that he couldn't keep running from the truth. He had made a promise, and he intended to keep it, no matter the cost. On the morning of their journey, Nnamdi, Chidimma, and their children set off for the village. The drive was long, and the children were excited, chattering away in the back seat. Chidimma was filled with a mix of emotions, curiosity, excitement, and a lingering sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but she pushed the thought aside, focusing on the joy of finally meeting Nnamdi's family. As they drove closer to the village, Nnamdi began to feel a sense of unease. He knew that the villagers would recognize him, and he wasn't sure how to explain his presence after so many years. When they were just a few miles away from the village, Nnamdi suddenly pulled the car over. "I forgot something," he said to Chidimma, his voice tense. "I need to go back and get it. You and the children continue on. The house is just down that road." He pointed in the direction of his family's compound. Chidimma was confused but agreed to wait for him. She drove on, following the directions Nnamdi had given her. When she arrived at the compound, she saw an elderly woman sitting outside, her face weathered but kind. She parked the car and approached her, the children trailing behind her. "Good evening," Chidimma said, smiling warmly. "My name is Chidimma, and these are my children. I'm Nnamdi's wife. He told us to come ahead while he went back to get something for you." Adaura exchanged a look of shock and disbelief. Adaura, her voice trembling, spoke first. "Nnamdi. My son, Nnamdi." Chidimma nodded, confused by her reaction. "Yes, Nnamdi. He's my husband." Adora's eyes filled with tears. "My dear," she said gently, "Nnamdi died many years ago. He was in a car accident. He's buried right over there." She pointed to a grave under a large tree, where a headstone bore Nnamdi's name. Chidimma's heart stopped. She felt a cold chill run down her spine. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "That's not possible. Nnamdi is alive. He's my husband. He's the father of my children." Adaura reached out and took Chidimma's hand. "I had a dream," she said softly. "Nnamdi came to me and told me he was bringing his family home. He said he was keeping his promise. But I didn't understand. I didn't know it would be like this." Chidimma's mind raced as the truth began to sink in. She thought back to all the times Nnamdi had avoided talking about his past, the way he never seemed to age, the strange feeling she sometimes got when she touched him, as if he wasn't entirely solid. She realized with a sinking heart that she had been married to a ghost all along. Tears streamed down Chidimma's face as she looked at her children, who were staring at their grandmother with wide, curious eyes. "What do I do now?" she asked, her voice breaking. Adaura pulled her into a tight embrace. "You are family," she said firmly. "You and these children are my family. Nnamdi kept his promise, even in death. He brought you to me, and I will never let you go." Chidimma clung to Adaura, her heart heavy with grief but also filled with a strange sense of peace. She realized that Nnamdi had loved her and their children enough to defy death itself, to keep the promise he had made to his mother. And though he was gone, his spirit had brought them together, creating a family that would endure. That night, as the family gathered around the fire, Adaura told stories of Nnamdi, his childhood, his dreams, his kindness. Chidimma and the children listened, their hearts filled with love for the man who had brought them together, even from beyond the grave. As the fire crackled and the stars shone brightly above, Nnamdi's spirit washed over them, finally at peace. He had kept his promise, and his family was whole. The stories continued late into the night, each one a testament to the love and bond that had brought them all together. The next morning, Chidimma woke up to the sound of birds chirping and the smell of fresh bread baking. She looked around the room, taking in the familiar yet foreign surroundings. Adaura had insisted they stay in the family compound, and Chidimma had agreed, knowing that this was where they belonged. As she got dressed, she thought about the previous night and the stories Adaura had told. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew that Nnamdi's spirit was still with them, watching over them, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was determined to honor his memory and keep his promise alive. Over the next few days, Chidimma and the children grew closer to Adaura. They helped her with the farm, cooked meals together, and shared stories of their lives in the city. The children, who had been shy at first, quickly warmed up to their grandmother, and Adaura doted on them, showering them with love and affection. Chidimma watched as her children blossomed under Adaura's care, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She knew that Nnamdi had brought them here for a reason, and she was determined to make the most of this new chapter in their lives. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, and Chidimma knew that they had found a new home. As the days turned into weeks, Chidimma began to see the impact Nnamdi had on the village. Everyone she met had a story to tell about him, his kindness, his ambition, his love for his mother. She realized that Nnamdi's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who knew him, and she felt a deep sense of pride. She also realized that she had a role to play in keeping that legacy alive. She began to involve herself in the community, helping out where she could and sharing her own stories of Nnamdi. The villagers welcomed her with open arms, and she felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. Chidimma noticed that Adaura seemed happier and more at peace since their arrival. The grief that had weighed heavily on her heart seemed to have lifted, and she smiled more often. Chidimma knew that their presence had brought her comfort, and she was glad to be able to give her that. She also noticed that her own heart was healing. The shock of discovering the truth about Nnamdi had been overwhelming, but being surrounded by his family and the love of the village had helped her come to terms with it. She knew that Nnamdi's spirit was still with them, and she felt a sense of peace knowing that he had kept his promise. As the weeks turned into months, Chidimma began to think about the future. She knew that they couldn't stay in the village forever, but she also knew that they couldn't leave Adaura behind. She discussed it with Adaura, who surprised her by suggesting that they all move to the city together. Chidimma was touched by the offer, but she knew that Adaura's heart was in the village. She suggested a compromise: they would split their time between the city and the village, ensuring that Adaura was never alone and that the children could grow up knowing their roots. With a plan in place, Chidimma and the children returned to the city, but this time, they brought Adaura with them. The transition was not easy, but with time, they all adjusted to their new life. Adaura quickly became a beloved member of the community, and the children thrived in their new environment. Chidimma felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew that Nnamdi's spirit was still with them, guiding them and watching over them. She was determined to honor his memory and keep his promise alive, ensuring that his legacy would live on through their family. As the years went by, Chidimma and Adaura became inseparable. They celebrated every milestone together, from the children's birthdays to their graduations. Each celebration was a testament to the love and bond that had brought them together, and Chidimma knew that Nnamdi's spirit was with them, sharing in their joy. One day, as they gathered around the table for a family dinner, Chidimma raised a toast to Nnamdi. To Nnamdi, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Thank you for bringing us together and for keeping your promise. We will always honor your memory and keep your legacy alive. As the years passed, Chidimma and Adaura grew older, but their bond remained as strong as ever. The children grew up and started families of their own, and the legacy of Nnamdi lived on through them. Chidimma often thought about Nnamdi and the promise he had made, and she felt a deep sense of peace knowing that he had kept it. One evening, as she sat by the fire with Adaura, she felt a familiar presence. She looked up and saw Nnamdi's spirit standing by the window, smiling at her. She knew that he was at peace, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love and bond that had brought them all together. The power of love and promises. Nnamdi's unwavering commitment to his promise to his mother, even after his death, highlights the strength of love and the importance of keeping one's word. Love transcends physical existence, and true promises are timeless.